Hi, I'm Carrie. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing a VR of sorts to Bohemian Rose Tarot. On Valentine's Day, she put out a video called hashtag Modern Love Decks that I believe the idea was sparked for her from Ethany's deck, the Modern Love Tarot. And in that video, she talks about decks that she likes to use for relationship readings for clients and such. And I thought that was such a great idea. And I've done multiple relationship readings for clients. And some of the decks I'm going to show for this semi-tag, it's not, I don't know if it's a true tag or not. I'm just jumping on her bandwagon and doing this VR to her. But anyway, some of the decks that I have chosen, I've kind of read for myself in a similar light for the categories that she posed. And I believe she picked the categories in relation to Ethany's guidebook for the Modern Love Tarot, because there's a general love, single and loving it, ready for love, committed, struggling, and the end. I could kick myself for not getting a second copy. This deck, I guess I have it upside down here, is something special in my collection. I've just spent an entire month doing guidance and doing fire and ice readings with this deck. And I'll talk more about that when I do my wrap up for the month and how I used it. But it was all relationship based, and this deck was really perfect for it. And I enjoyed the messages that come from it. And this, if I'm just looking for a general relationship type reading, this would probably be the very first one that I pull out. So this is a fantastic tarot. So her first category is the single and loving it. And for that category, I picked the mass market edition of the Unfolding Path Tarot. This was put out by Hay House. I want to say that I love this deck. It is one of my favorites in my collection, but I really wish that they would have done different cardstock for this deck. But that's all I'm going to say about that. So why would I choose this for single and loving it? And that is because there are only 8 cards, because I counted, in this deck that depicts more than one person. So because of that, I think this is the perfect deck to choose if you are wanting just a singular aspect on something. How your energy is affecting those around you, how someone else's energy is affecting you directly. I think this is a great deck to go to get some self-love readings from this, because it's not people heavy. There's just the one person on the card, on most of the cards, I should say. Even the Devil, which I don't know where it is here in this deck, only has one person on it. So I've used this deck several times to like check in on my self-worth, to check in on like kind of some self-love care and that sort of thing. And I don't know if I've ever said on my channel before, but when I do a reading for myself, I'm reading for myself as if I'm reading for another person. That's how I write it in my journal. I don't write my readings for myself in the, I need a different perspective because I'm causing a lot of conflict in my life. I don't do that. I would write, you're not seeing the big picture here. You're not even viewing things outside of your own viewpoint. Therefore, it's causing extra conflict in your life. That is how I journal it. So I can stay objective in my reading. And this is a little bit off topic and a little bit into a side tangent, I guess. Not even a tangent, but a side quest, we'll say. I found that I was writing my readings in first person. I didn't like the way, I didn't like reading it back to myself. I need to do this. I didn't like that. When I sit down to read for myself, it's like I am reading for an invisible person across the table from me. So I am a separate reader outside of myself, giving myself guidance. Does that make sense? Am I the only person that does that? I've never really heard anybody else talk about reading for themselves that way, but all my journals from years and years back, I've never read for myself in the first person because I want that objectivity to come into my readings. So in order to do that, I step outside of myself. So I am another person reading for myself in order to get an objective viewpoint to the reading. So there's my side quest done. But anyway, I do think this is a great deck to pick for the single and loving it because of the aspects that I already said with the people and energy I feel that this deck, for me anyway, has in it. And I should say, before I go on to the next category, if you've never read for yourself that way, where you're stepping outside yourself and like you're getting a reading from another reader, just try it and see how that works for you. See if it changes your reading in any way. I'd love to know. And I'd love to know if you do that already. So let me know in the comments below. So the next category is looking for love. So doing a reading for a client who is looking for love. And hands down, that is my Good Karma Tarot. This is another mass market deck. And I don't have the box handy or the guidebook handy right now. So I can't tell you who it's by. I love everything about this deck. I think this deck sometimes gets shortchanged as like a fun deck to use, maybe because of the imagery and that on it, and maybe isn't taken as seriously as some of the other decks may be taken because of the imagery on it. But this imagery is everything to me. I love everything about it. I did some big, huge year ahead readings with this last year, 2023. This was my deck of choice, and I've gotten such fabulous feedback using this deck for a year ahead reading. So this is the deck that I like to pull out if someone wants to know if this is a good love partner, you know, how are things looking, that sort of thing. Because not only does it have the people connection in here in the imagery, but depending on what my intuition brings forward, I mean, I could literally see this Page of Cups card as you meeting someone at a bar, going out to drinks with girlfriends and, you know, meeting a love match at a bar. I know I've used this deck and I saw somebody meeting someone over dinner. Because of the way this imagery was portrayed when they were invited out by friends and everything. So I think this is a fantastic deck to be used for looking for love reading. If you have the Good Karma Tarot, what do you use it for? Because you never hear this deck talked about anymore. And I understand that because there's so much on the market now. There's so many new decks coming out and flooding our senses basically by the mass amount that comes out indie and mass market throughout a year, that sometimes decks like these just, you know, get pushed to the side. They had their moment in the sun and people move on from them. But for me, this happens to be a real staple, especially reading for others in my collection, and I thoroughly enjoy using it. So I would love to hear if anybody else uses this deck too. So her next category is committed relationships, and she talked about a deck that she uses for just like a general reading for a committed relationship, and for me, that's the Touchstone Tarot. I don't think this is necessarily the one you think of to do a love reading with in a committed relationship, but this is the deck that I use when I do client readings that order my soul to soul readings. This is a fantastic reader to dive underneath the surface of what's going on in a relationship. Now, I know any tarot is a tarot, and a Knight of Swords is a Knight of Swords in any tarot. But for some reason, the expressions on this deck, the close-up of the images on this deck, and just the way that the people are portrayed in these, I believe it's Renaissance images, helps me dive under the surface to these relationships. And this has been my go-to deck when I am doing, like I said, that soul-to-soul reading. And that soul-to-soul reading for me is one where you're feeling this way towards them, and how are they feeling back towards you. So you get a full picture of how each other's feeling and how you're reacting to them, and so on. It's one of my favorite readings, relationship readings that I do. And this is my deck of choice for that, which I already explained because of it just peels back some layers to the relationship for me. The next category was the deck you use to bring like fresh energy into a relationship. If a client is wanting to rejuvenate their relationship in some way. And I picked the Wandering Star Tarot for this. I can't say that I've ever just had a client ask about bringing a fresh perspective into a relationship. But this is another deck that I have pulled out for relationship readings. And for me, it does give that fresh perspective to a relationship, unlike the Touchstone Tarot, which I said I felt peeled back layers of a relationship. And I think that's interesting to even conceptualize two different tarot decks that are of the same system in those ways. And it's not that the meanings are any different, it's just the vibration or energy or whatever you want to call it of the deck itself. And this deck is a little bit lighter, not fluffy, just a little bit lighter energy to it than the Touchstone Tarot has to it. And that's why I feel that this deck gives that fresh perspective to the relationship, because not only do you have your tarot meanings here, and however you read those in combination, but there's so much coloring. And I talked about this last year a lot because I gushed over this deck a lot last year. But there's so much coloring to this deck. So right here, if someone wanted to bring some freshness to a relationship, you got the little bit of yellow there, more yellow there, and a whole bunch of yellow here. I'm not even looking at what the cards are. I'm just looking at the coloring. So this would tell me that there's a lack of joy. There's a lack of that lightheartedness, that sun energy happening. And maybe that's something that you need to start bringing back into your relationship with one another, is having fun. The Four of Wands as celebrating, finding reasons to celebrate. It doesn't have to be the grand, huge, special occasions that everybody celebrates. Make your own, that kind of thing. Especially, like I said, we've just got little tiny streaks of yellow here. The yellow sun starting to peek out here. And then look how it's all behind them here in that picture. So that would be another aspect that you could bring to the reading regarding that. And then here we have, the blues. So there could be like a communication issue here, or maybe there is something under the surface here that needs to be dealt with before you can lighten things up or freshen things up, between you and your partner or whatever it is. So for that reason alone, I think this deck is a great choice for that fresh energy aspect to a relationship. So the next category she mentioned was doing intimacy readings for clients or even for yourself. And if I was doing intimacy readings for myself, I would pick the Sexual Magic Tarot, or I would pick the Casanova tarot. Either one of those, they have some explicit images in them. There's a lot of nudity in them, so I'm not going to show them here. And I think everybody has pretty much seen them, and I'm sure there's walkthroughs here on TarotTube also. But for myself, that's my go-to. That's what I would pull out to dive into some intimacy issues. But doing that for a client could be a little bit, could be a touchy subject depending on how open they are to the topic in general. So I would want something a little bit gentler that like maybe wouldn't put them off if they didn't like the imagery in that and the other two tarots that I mentioned. So for that reason, I would use the romantic tarot. This is Lo Scarabeo for looking into the intimacy of a relationship, because there are a lot of imagery in here that you could get, or that could spark, I guess, your intuition as far as where it would lead you to what kind of intimacy you need in that sort. And I haven't read with this for other people, not yet. I just got this in at some point last year, but I have used this deck to ask what kind of romance is missing in my marriage. I mean, God, I've been married forever. So, you know, where's the romance missing in our marriage, or how can we, you know, bring romance back into our marriage, that sort of thing. That's why I thought that I would say this one is what I would use for clients as far as doing any sort of intimacy reading for them. I mean, me personally, I've been reading for a long time and I've had all kinds of questions posed to me, but I'll say that I don't think that's ever been one. I really don't think so. But this is one that I think is gentle enough that you could broach that subject with another person. So the next type of reading that she talked about was what deck you would use to read for someone who is struggling in their relationship. And the very first one that came to mind is your traditional RWS tarot. And I would probably pull out the Radiant Rider-Waite tarot. I thought about my Morgan Greer. The Morgan Greer tarot is such a straight shooter, and sometimes I feel that it's a little too brutal, at least in the readings for myself. It's brutal. So that's why I thought I would probably go to a regular RWS if they said that they were really struggling in their relationship and needed some guidance for it, if I was going to use cards to do that for them. And I just feel like this is like no nonsense images compared to like some of the other tarots that are very heavily illustrated. I don't know why, and maybe that sounds dumb, but I just feel like these are like kind of no nonsense images. This strips everything back to the very beginning kind of thing, and maybe gives you that energy of working from the ground up of what happened and where it's headed, sort of thing. So I would have to say that this is definitely the one I would pull out, just any plain RWS deck in order to work through some struggles with them. However, I have another deck that's completely different from what I just said. And that is the Tarot of Curious Creatures. And I often hear that this is people's good mood deck. And yeah, it is. It can be that. But this is the deck that I pull out when people cannot make a decision about something. So if someone came to me and they were struggling in their relationship and it was kind of a he said, she said sort of thing, I would do my this pyramid spread, looking at both aspects of it to see where the perspective was of the argument between the two of them. This person is this person is that. And how they can come together would come, say, right down the middle. This is one of my favorite spreads to do. And this is the deck. This is the go-to deck that I always choose to do this. This is another one that I look at the imagery, I look at where the character's facing, I look at the colors of the card. Is it heavily green? So there's someone who's like really hurt, maybe in their heart space. Is it a lot of red, happening in the cards? Maybe that's someone who is only focused on the mundane problems and not spending any time connecting. I don't know, whatever the scenario may be. The coloring does really play a part, from maybe the color of the clothes to the color of the background or to whatever is happening. Especially when I'm comparing, this or that, her side, his side, or her side, whatever. The relationship dynamic is. So this is one that if someone was struggling and should I do this or should I do that, I would pull this deck out and use it. And I get fantastic results with it. So the next category she talked about was breakup readings, and the decks that she used, or that you would want to use when broaching that subject about a breakup. When someone talks to me about their relationship ending or falling apart or whatever it is, I want to be as gentle with that person as possible, because they're already in a place of upheaval because of that situation. So if they have come to me and they've already broken up and they want to talk about that, I'm probably going to go to my Soul Tree Oracle cards, because this is, for me, about helping them heal and the energy that they need to bring forward within themselves in order to heal and move past this breakup to begin with. So I want to approach it from a more healing aspect, and what kind of energy that they need to bring forward within themselves in order to help them heal, to become whole again. Because when you have had a breakup, you're broken. There's something that is now missing. A piece of you was in that relationship is now missing. So you need to fill that hole. And that's why I would pick the Soul Trees Tarot, because we could look at these words and talk about how that could help make them whole. Or look at the word detachment and see how they are stuck focusing on the relationship that they're detaching from their life and that sort of thing. So I would use something extremely gentle like this. But if you did want a no-nonsense look at why a relationship ended or is on the verge of ending, I would use the Aquarian Tarot. This is a no-nonsense tarot. I think the amount of white space around the edge and within the image itself, that it doesn't feel as heavy. But it is a hard-hitting deck for me. I do not use this Aquarian Tarot lightly, because it will knock me on my ass, so to speak, when I go to pull it out to use it. So if I better be prepared and ready to hear what I'm asking when I use this deck. And I think I've talked about that before. I know when I first got this, I mentioned that I felt this deck was cold. And while it has that kind of that energy still within it for me, it's still a hard-hitting deck, a no-nonsense deck. Look, this is how it is. Let's move on now within its readings. So if someone really wanted to know and was okay with whatever came out, this would be the hard-hitting deck that I would pull out to use for them. But personally, I would just stick with my oracle to help someone process through what they're going through and how it's really affecting them emotionally. So I think that's all I have to share with you today. I'm going to put a link to Bohemian Rose's tarot to this video in my description box below. So be sure to go check out her video and see the decks that she uses in these categories for relationship readings. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you being here. If you like this video, you know the YouTube stuff, thumbs up, subscribe, and all that happy good stuff. And until I see you next time, bye.